But I think the biggest thing is be resilient, right? And don't take no for an answer. That's literally what it took. I came out of the Marine Corps. I had zero experience. I applied at an FBO because there wasn't an opening at the helicopter EMS. Applied at the FBO. I got told no. I went back the next week, applied at the FBO. I got told no. Went back the next week, applied at the FBO. They're like, we don't have any maintenance openings. What, do you have anything? I did ground service for, I think, 6 weeks. And then you're persistent. Then I worked in the hangar, as a quote unquote apprentice until you proved yourself. And then, okay, you can be a mechanic now. So it was, just be persistent and someone will give you a chance. And I tell my team, we have to give those chances. Someone gave us a chance.
Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS.
All right, everyone, you're ready to contact. You're cleared to the Bravo.
The Vertical MRO Podcast explores the fascinating world of helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul with your host, Val Medved.
Now, line altimeter 3029, approved as requested.
The podcast features helicopter technicians, mechanics, engineers, and MRO experts who share invaluable industry insight, knowledge, and stories that will inspire current and aspiring industry maintainers.
Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS in partnership with Vertical Magazine. In this two-part series, I sit down with James Helkey, who's the Director of Maintenance and Completions at Leonardo. James is a highly experienced aviation professional with a strong background in aviation maintenance, leadership, and organizational development. Holding an airframe and powerplant license and a business degree specializing in organizational development and change management, James has demonstrated exceptional leadership in managing large teams and complex aviation operations. Currently serving as the Director of Completions, Maintenance, and Overhaul at Leonardo Helicopters, he oversees a team of over 100 employees and ensures the highest standards in aircraft servicing, repair, and overhauls across multiple helicopter series. With extensive experience supporting FAA, IASA, and internal audits, James excels in fostering customer satisfaction, coordinating cross-departmental efforts, and supporting the development of new aircraft programs. His career spans military service, corporate aviation, and leadership roles, all marked by his commitment to safety, quality, and operational excellence.
Special thanks to our sponsors for this podcast: Robinson Helicopter Company, Precision Aviation Group, Rotorcraft Repair and Manufacturing.
Going back to the topic of recruitment, how do we as an industry do a better job of making sure those folks that are actively in the military know that these positions are potentially available for them after they're done with their military career?
That's a good question. We try to do that. We as a company have joined SkillBridge, which I have a gentleman on the team now that's in that program. I know we actively try to get over to McGuire and some of the local bases to let the young men and women know that we're out here. But it's for sure something that we need to have, that relation. I don't know if it's called SEPS anymore. That's what it was called when I got out, the separation. And really they need to be talking to the young men and women a year before they get out. So they have the time to use the benefits that they have to go get their A&P and get the things they're going to need on the civilian side, so they can make that smooth transition. Because, I'm far removed from the military now. I don't know how much of that information gets to them. I know we have a little more access now with having the MH program and the TH program. But a lot of times, like with the TH, we're talking to, students that are, guys and gals that are going to be in the military the next 6, 7, 8 years. So not much to talk there. But the Air Force, there's a little bit more opportunity there when you're talking to the maintainers and pilots out in the field and trying to give them a feel of what's out there and what the opportunities are. I think we need to be more active as a community.
Yeah.
And I know Vertical is doing a lot with that, with the MRO conferences and the things we got going on this year. But in talking at these military type shows or going to the military type bases, especially the heavy hitters, I can speak for the Marine Corps, down in New River and out in, used to be Tustin, the one in San Diego now, Miramar.
Oh, Miramar, yep.
Having a career day or something out there and talking to those military men and women that are, a year out, that are going to be separating soon, what opportunities are there. And
I'll touch on the conferences real quick. You brought up the Vertical MRO conference. And that's something that I'm hoping will be a game changer when it comes to the recruitment of new folks. I think there's a lot of people who find themselves in school to become an A&P, and don't realize that the helicopter community is there essentially. Like I think a lot of attention is placed on the airlines and the fixed wing side of things, and the rotorcraft community it was like, hey, we're here too, So we're working with the local schools as much as possible to get the students in for free if they want to join. I love conferences. I talk about it a lot. I think when it comes to career progression, a lot of things come from conferences. The education,
100%.
the networking. And the networking is probably the biggest part of it to me, and the training. When you look over your career, can you talk about the importance that conferences have played in your career, was from a networking standpoint or anything else?
No, I've been fortunate, to have been in leadership roles along the way to where I've attended, AMTC, MIT, HAI, now BAI, and on and on and on. And for sure, I have a lot of good friends that work for Eurocopter, now Airbus, Robinson, Bell, and all the supporting factions, having been an operator before I came to Leonardo, because I used to operate Dolphins, so Eurocopter products, and then Augustas as well, now Leonardo. So over the years, just those interactions and talking and again, being yourself at those conferences, which is important. Because especially when you're a base mechanic or a lead mechanic, or you're just there as an attendee, people are always watching just based on my position. But even it goes the same at those shows. People are always watching and they're listening, and on how you handle yourself, your professionalism, your communication. Because in the end, that's how I ended up at Leonardo, with conversations at an HAI, actually in Anaheim, in 2014. Started talking about an opportunity here, and one thing led to another, and here I am. So conferences are very important for the networking. It's also important, when you're in those, to find, if you get the opportunity to go to a conference, go around and get as much information as you can. Be a sponge. What is out there as potential vendors? What's out there as potential solutions? And bring that back, because then you become invaluable to the company you work for.
Yeah, what I love about our community is the information that people are willing to share. I always talk about not having to reinvent the wheel. I think we all come with our particular problems we're dealing with in our shop or at our hangar, and we're looking for solutions for these types of things. And you go, and whether it's in a class or you're at a bar having a beer with somebody, talking about these things, like, oh, I dealt with that, and this is how I fixed it, or here's how I addressed it. Those are the kinds of things that I think are huge. And then you touch on the networking, the reputation. Our community is small, so going to these things and developing these relationships where people can be like, oh, I know James, he's an amazing guy. I've seen him at these different conferences and spent a bunch of time with him. I think those really pay huge dividends in the development of your career. So back to you guys, I appreciate and thank you for your support of the MRO conference. I think Kelowna and Irving are going to be entirely different in a lot of ways, but very similar in a lot of ways. And you guys have supported us. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's very unique. Again, going to Verticon this year, I always love Verticon. I love the trade shows, but I always feel like the MRO community is an afterthought in a lot of those places, so
for sure
excited to really kind of put the light on the MRO community and talk about things and provide training that is really dedicated and catered towards our community, So again, thank you very much on that. Again, going back to looking over the course of your career, you've done a lot of cool things, from a maintenance perspective. When you look at all the systems you've worked on and the different things you've done, is there one thing that stands out to you as like, this one was really challenging and I didn't like it, or two, this was a really cool thing that I got an opportunity to do?
Well, I was in the movie The Jackal.
Oh, really?
That was an opportunity from the Marine Corps days as a crew chief.
That's cool.
So that would have never came if it wasn't for being in the military, being a crew chief, and that's another one. It was Major Ross asked if I'd work a weekend, just volunteer, and I said, yeah, why not? I like flying with him. Next thing you know, we're meeting Richard Gere and Sidney Poitier and Bruce Willis and filming a movie. This was back in the 90s. So that was probably the coolest thing.
You had brought up earlier getting out of the military and going to school and then ultimately getting a job. that's a hectic time of life. I commend anybody who can hold a full-time job, have a family, and go to school at the same time. I think each one of those things are designed to work independent of each other. But from your perspective, and for advice you can give to folks on work-life balance, how do you do those types of things? How do you juggle that stuff and maintain somewhat of a balance?
And that's, it's truly something I work on still today in getting more life into the work-life balance. Back in those days, it was an end goal, right? I wanted to have a degree. Obviously, I didn't want to wait till I was 40 or 50 years old to have children. So, and my wife at the time, were committed to the degree, and obviously we needed to have a compensation as well. Do I suggest that path? I mean, the reward comes. Is it hard? It was 5 years of really sleeping on Sundays because I went Saturdays as well for school. In the end, do I regret it? Not a bit. It was worth it. Did I miss a lot? Yes. Are there times I wish I had back? Of course. But the key is to find, and I still struggle with it, and I force myself to leave, every day by 5:30, unless there's a demand with a customer or those kind of things, of course. But work-life balance is very important. And I don't think we put enough stress on it. Even in my role, there's work that has to get done. There's certain obligations we have to meet and goals we have to meet for the company. But if we completely burn ourselves out, we won't meet those goals either. So you have to find the balance of what works. And I still struggle with that. That's probably the biggest struggle I have is, I'm pulled to staying at work to get X done, or I can get one more thing done or whatever. Fortunately, I have a wife that's very understanding.
Yeah.
But she'll text me and, okay, you need to come home now or you're not eating. So she helps me in that regard. But it's something, but again, in aviation, we do this because we love aviation.
Yeah.
I love coming to work. I love the work we do. I really enjoy working with the people I work with, the team I have, the coworkers. That's what brings us here.
Yeah.
The love for aviation, the love for helicopters and the noise they make. And we all say the day I stop looking up when I hear a helicopter is the day I retire. It's something I still work on to this day, is the work-life balance. I mean, it was very challenging back in those days, but it was something, I've always been goal-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
I had a goal to graduate in 5 years. I think I did it in 4.5. I wanted to have my degree. Working at Light Flight happened sooner than I thought it would. So that just I had to work that into the plan. And fortunately, the hospital was good with working with me when I had class and those kind of things. So it worked out in the end. I mean, it always works out in the end.
Again, kind of going back to your statement about common sense, it seems like common sense. I think we're fortunate in this industry and community because everyone's here, like you said, because we're passionate about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that really changes things, in my opinion. Nobody wants to go to work and struggle through the day. It's miserable. I think most people that find themselves in our industry are there because they absolutely love it. They push their own kids out of the way to go outside and look at the helicopter that's flying by. And like you said, the day you stop doing that, maybe it's time to reevaluate where you are. But I do love that about our community. It's fantastic. I think it makes it truly, truly unique. So I think from the work-life balance standpoint, that's kind of what makes it challenging, is that we're also passionate and it's not a chore to be at work. You truly enjoy it. You enjoy the community that's there, kind of everything that surrounds what we do. But going back to you in the early part, I think what you did was really wise, as a young man, to invest that time and energy into getting your education and those things up front. Because I think the longer you wait, the harder it is, the more, unrealistic it is.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability, so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
definitely pays bigger dividends,
Yeah.
right? You suffer. It's like anything. You suffer in the beginning for an outcome, and there was always a plan B too. Obviously I wanted to stay in aviation, but that's why I got a degree in business. Okay, if this doesn't work out, because this was back in the times when the airlines were laying off or corporations were out of business selling their jets. That's why I made the decision to stay in EMS. There may have been other opportunities out there, but EMS, the HEMS world is very unique. It's very family oriented. I still have really good friends. One of my best friends is the director of maintenance there now. The nurses and the doctors and the administrative staff at the hospital, still talk to a lot of them. It's a different community. I do miss that community, but it's a very unique, but it also has job security, right? Because we're always going to need medical.
Right.
So tight knit. So that's what kept me in the HEMS world for so long.
I love the HIMSS community. You talk about the missions that they complete. I think they don't like to refer to them as missions anymore, but that it draws a picture of what they're doing. I think anytime you're involved in a program where there's a specific mission in mind, you're part of an overall team that's accomplishing these missions. I love it. And look at all the missions that Leonardo's a part of worldwide. Really, really cool to see the good work that you guys have done to build the platforms that allow these missions to be completed. When you look, at trends at Leonardo, what do you see in trend wise in the mission based side of things from a public safety standpoint? Do you see new aviation programs popping up? Do you see a certain trend in helicopter types being adopted? What's kind of a macro trend that you're seeing?
In the HEMS world, anyways, we have quite a few 169s coming online this year. I think 6 up in Canada, going to twin engine, IFR, glass cockpit stuff. We have a few of them coming online. We have some 139s coming on. The 119, we have some here and there, but a lot of our production has been taken up by the TH program. So I don't think there was a lot out there to offer. We have a few more 109s coming in this year. But we're seeing the 169 starting to pick up some steam. I mean, it is a beautiful it's a beautiful machine.
Yeah.
I was fortunate to do some demo activity before I took this role. So in 1920 timeframe, where we flew one all over the U.S., here to California, all over the California. And we actually flew it to Sao Paulo, Brazil, and did demos all along the way. So I spent probably 200 flight hours in that aircraft, which it's a great machine. Did it have some teething pains in the beginning, like any brand new machine they do? But now it seems to be, it's really flatlined now. It's proven itself, and it's a solid machine.
Talk about the technology that's wrapped into these new machines. There's so much technology, which I love. Talk about effectiveness and efficiency in public safety aviation. A lot of that's made possible through the technology. On the maintainer side, it's the game has changed entirely. To where I think you used to be only responsible for the mechanical systems in the aircraft. Now a lot of the shops are responsible for everything. All the avionics, the troubleshooting, and all those things. For folks that are new in their career, or maybe they're late in their career and they're finding themselves in a position where they've got some of this advanced technology that they've ordered, or maybe they just have received, is there any training you recommend for these folks to go and get under their belt to help them kind of go through those troubleshooting steps?
I mean, for our products, for sure, our avionics courses. But a key is to get one of the younger generation that knows computer inside and out. I mean, that's where we found the best success, because they've grown up their whole lives connected to computers. So someone, I say younger generation, probably someone 40 and younger, not to discriminate by age, but that they've always been around computers, because you get, when I was maintaining aircraft, the biggest thing we hooked up to was a TDFM or something to put some radio program frequencies in there for the hospital. That was it. Everything else was mechanical. You do troubleshooting, of course, but if it's a box, you remove and replace. Now you're doing target loads. You're sending software to each of the displays. You're sending software to the NIC cards, and on and on and on. Nav database you're uploading, where we used to do it on a card on the old 435 30s. Actually, the pilots did it. The mechanics didn't even do it back then. Now we have to do that. But once you learn those initial steps, it's easy. But it's a little bit overwhelming, especially for the more senior techs out there that have never, the first time you're around a glass cockpit aircraft, say you're coming from an old Dolphin, where there's no glass in it, and just something like a 169 or a 139 or a 189 or something like that. It's a steep learning curve to understand how to get it to work. But once you get past that initial fear, it's pretty easy. I say that, I don't do it. My avionics guys tell me it's easy.
Well, I feel like the way that a lot of the software is being designed, a lot of the avionics are being designed now. They're being designed with intuition in mind. You look at an iPhone, it's just intuitive in how you navigate through an iPhone. I feel like the same is to be said for a lot of the avionics now. We're past the initial stages where they're new to aviation. Now we're into the stage where we're trying to make it more efficient in terms of navigating. How do you look at a display and have it just make sense intuitively? I think we're in that place where we're making that more efficient. Would you agree kind of with that?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we're moving to touchscreens, right?
Yeah.
We're moving to virtual circuit breakers. Instead of having 150 circuit breakers over your right shoulder or left shoulder, you may have 20, and then the rest are virtual within a box that's touchscreen. It puts all that information in front of the pilot that they need to see. And then maintenance, you can troubleshoot the aircraft through the displays now to a certain extent. And the aircraft will tell you when something's wrong. And then you can get into hums and health usage monitoring system. You can get into that where you're getting advanced diagnostics on vibrations and different things that are going on with the aircraft. And our hums engineers can tell you, hey, go do this, or you're going to need to change that bearing or whatever in 20 hours. They can see all of this just by trending. On some aircraft, we can look at hums by a vibration coming up and tell you have a damper bad. I think the future is predictive maintenance.
Yeah.
And we've built a data lake, a digital service tower, we call it, where they're harnessing all that information and running the analytics and all of that really smart people stuff, to look at those kind of things. Anytime there's an issue, they're looking at all the analytics prior to that to get to that where we can predict you need to change X in 10 hours or 20 hours. So
yeah, from a safety standpoint, that's huge. Eliminating some possible failures in the field just through vibration analysis. I think I know that the answer to the question I'm about to ask, but I'll ask it anyways. From a maintenance perspective, when it comes to technology, is there any technology that is kind of up and coming that you're really excited about? Again, going back to efficiencies and things as a maintainer that you wish you had in the early part of your career?
For sure. So, I mean, just a MRO based or any kind of maintenance software, right? Because now, it's like I talked earlier, looking at a lot of different software programs and what's out there and how we can get more efficient. With AI, they're using AI in a lot of these softwares now and helping you sequence and where to put your manpower. And, you can put on a set of statistics in there and they can pull that information. And now you can have AI helping you plan out where the best place is to put each of your techs, right? There's still a human interface there. And there's also a human factor part of it. But having those tools to better utilize your resources versus just. So I'm excited for some of that stuff. For sure, predictive maintenance, I think we're a little ways off from that. Then you get in the regulatory side, which kind of muddies every water, and rightfully so. Predictive maintenance, I think, is interesting. It's scary in one way too, because, the scheduled maintenance is what keeps us in business, especially in the line of work we're in. It's what keeps the maintainers going. And like we always tell the pilots, we'll always have calendars if you don't fly. But I think that's interesting stuff. And the usage of AI. I've gone to a couple of conferences on AI, not so much in the helicopter world, but on the customer support side. It's really interesting what's out there and what it can do.
Yeah.
So it's going to be neat to see how that comes into the aviation community.
Yeah, I feel like on the topic of AI, I feel like we're on the cusp of some really, really interesting things that we haven't even thought of, and how to employ AI.
Yeah.
I think back to when the internet was fairly new, and you probably remember the AOL dial-up, all the noises that came with that AOL dial-up. But I think when that was in the infancy, we had no idea how we would be able to utilize it in the ways that we're using it today. I think the same thing will apply with AI. Our early adoption of AI is I think scratching the surface of what its capabilities are. So I'm really excited, I think, as a whole, to see how we can use AI going forward for efficiencies, idea generation, solutions for things. I think there's an almost unlimited possibilities that exist with AI.
For
It
sure.
is scary in a lot of ways.
It's scary too. Yeah. It's very scary in a lot of regard.
But going back to your completions, you talked about a lot of the completions you guys are doing. Are you seeing any trends as far as maybe particular requests that are coming in from clients, whether they're commercial or public safety or military?
Thank you to our sponsor, Rotorcraft Repair and Manufacturing, manufacturer of DSX, Dragon Skin Extreme, an FFA-approved rotor blade leading-edge erosion corrosion protective coating with a proven record of durability in harsh environments like sand and rain. Contact Seth at rotorcraft.biz and stop wasting money on other so-called erosion coatings.
No, I mean, I have some military stuff going on now, just military trainers. For overseas, the VIPs are always looking for the latest and greatest high-speed internet, but nothing crazy. It's keeping up with the latest technology. What's the latest radio out there for EMS to be able to talk to? Putting the old days we'd have an RT and a radio head for every radio we had. Now they can put 5-6 radios in one TDFM. So we see some of that stuff coming where we're having to redo some paperwork, update STCs for that kind of stuff. Law enforcement, there's all the shot over moving maps and those kind of things they're putting in. But
the shot over
lately, the last couple of years have been military trainers that we've really bet on.
The implementation of shot over and those augmented reality systems are amazing.
No, it's crazy.
What it supplies is phenomenal. And I remember my agency, we got one of the first shot overs, and it was a computer tower, that you put in the baggage compartment of the helicopter. And and now they're tiny little computers that you can put in the center console area of the aircraft.
Yep.
The miniaturization of those things is amazing.
No, it's crazy.
So that's the kind of stuff that is interesting to me. And, as we go forward to see some of these technologies, not only become better, but miniaturized and everything else. I think one of the things that I'm excited for from a technology standpoint is kind of the bidirectional flow of data in flight. So the use of Starlink or any of those other types of devices that are coming up. Are you seeing a lot of requests for that?
We are starting to see quite a few of those, and I believe in the 139 line, those will be in our production here soon. I forget the cutoff serial number, and actually I just answered a request for that for one of our customers. To have that capability where it's a live feed, live download of the HUMS data and all the analytics that go along with it. So we're going to that next step of there is no interaction between the maintenance staff and the aircraft to get that data. It's being transmitted while the aircraft's flying.
Wow. From a regulatory standpoint, has there been any hurdles that you've had to deal with the Starlink or anything related to that?
With Starlink, we're actually working with our partner company. We actually just did a test last week on a 139 because they're working on all the behind-the-scenes software that needs to happen to make that work because you still have to go through the blade arc. So I know our partner, Leonardo DRS, is working on a Starlink solution. We're not currently working on one in my engineering team.
Yeah, again, that's an exciting area for me as a pilot and a TFO, tactical flight officer. It was difficult. We could transmit data, but we couldn't receive data very well.
Yeah.
So I think when you can do both efficiently, that'll be great.
Well, that adds a whole nother level to EMS as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can conference in an ER doc. If you have a 30-minute flight, you can have a live feed of an ER doc giving you orders on what you need to do to the patient, those kind of things. So it's huge benefits.
Yeah. Wild. Going back to the training surrounding AMPs, I think a lot of the folks that are graduating are looking for jobs, and it's kind of the chicken and the egg. How do you graduate from a program and then go find a job? Usually they want some level of experience before you start. But what advice do you have for young AMPs that are trying to, I guess, cut their teeth in the industry, but are being told, hey, you have to have some experience?
Yeah, the age-old question. I know one thing we're doing here. So we started a kind of like a basic helicopter course. So we partnered with the AIN school here, and it's actually open to them, and it can come from the outside as well, and our own internal employees. So employees that aren't working in the production line or the 145, and we put them through. I think it's a 4-week course where we kind of teach them the basics of here, as far as connect the wiring and on and on and on. So they spend 4 weeks with our actual instructors, and then they'll move to either production or my side. If they have an AMP and I have an opening, I'll bring them onto my team, which I've had two young men that have come over. But I think the biggest thing is be resilient, right? Don't take no for an answer. That's literally what it took. I came out of the Marine Corps. I had zero experience. I applied in an FBO because there wasn't an opening at the helicopter EMS. Applied at the FBO. I got told no. I went back the next week, applied at the FBO. I got told no. Went back the next week, applied at the FBO. They're like, we don't have any maintenance openings. What, do you have anything? I did ground service for, I think, 6 weeks. And then you're persistent. Then I worked in the hangar, as a quote unquote apprentice until you proved yourself. And then, okay, you can be a mechanic now. So it was, just don't be persistent. Someone will give you a chance. And I tell my team, we have to give those chances. Someone gave us a chance. It comes down to training and passing on that knowledge. I was fortunate enough to work with a lot of great men in my career, that took the time to teach me and pass on their knowledge to me. We owe that same gratitude to the up and coming, young men and women out there. We didn't learn everything we know on our own. So we owe it to ourselves and the up and comers to pass on that knowledge. Take the 5 minutes if you see them struggling and stop. Hey, did you try it this way? Did you try it that way? Which I still do today. If I see something down there, I'll go down and see what they're doing, see if I can help out. They usually tell me to go away, but because they don't like me standing over their shoulder. But I think we owe it to them. But as far as getting into the industry, I think it's just be persistent. Interview well, be professional. If they tell you to be there at 11 o'clock for an interview, be there at 10:45. It's just, we go back to common sense. Be the one that stands out.
Yeah.
Find what that takes. Dress higher than what needs to be dressed. I've never gone to an interview not wearing a suit. Even when I went to an interview for a mechanic job, way overdressed, but you know what? They remembered.
I think those points are huge that you brought up, and again, the theme of common sense comes up, but it's somewhat uncommon these days. But I think for the things you brought up are important. Getting out of the comfort zone, accepting your challenges that push you out of your comfort zone, I think is huge. Not taking, don't take no for an answer. If you can just be consistent and I don't want to say bug people, but look for opportunities that maybe didn't exist a week before, 2 weeks before. Mm-hmm. Those are the kind of things that I think will open doors. And then you get into a position like yourself where you got to prove yourself. It wasn't the position you wanted, but it was a position within the company that you wanted. So you got to go and improve yourself in that position, and like, hey, it opens up new doors. I love what you've done there. That advice is huge. I think it's great. When it comes to employment at Leonardo, what are you guys looking for? What do you look for in a new applicant when you have a position open?
I unfortunately don't do much hiring anymore, but what I pass to the team, and I feel that I know they're aligned. For me, I'm Yeah, the resume got you in the door. Once you're in front of me, I really don't care what's on the resume because I've already read it. It's already there. I know you have an A&P at this point. It's really about personality. It's how you come across the interview. Are you confident? Are you just making things up?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know an answer, just say you don't know the answer. Because trust me, when you don't know the answer and you try and make it up that you do know the answer, you can read through it like a red flag. So it's knowing what you know and knowing what you don't. More importantly, knowing what you don't know.
Yeah.
I look for confidence. I look for personality. For sure, on time. If you're not on time, you stand zero shot. That's really what I go off of anymore. I mean, like I said, the resume, I've already read that. That's gotten you to the interview part. So if you've made it to the interview part, those are the things. Come in with confidence. I don't ask typical aviation questions. I ask very broad, open-ended questions. A lot of where do you see yourself in 5 years? Tell me about the one time you made a mistake. How'd you handle it? What did you do? Tell me about a success. Tell me about a failure. And I try and open them up too. I'll give them examples, in my life, when I've made a mistake, what was the outcome? How did I handle it? Those kind of things. So
Yeah.
that's really what I look at it's more, we can teach you already have the basics. So you have an A&P. So I know you have that standard. And that standard can be a little different depending on which school you went to, but we can teach off of that. A lot of times I can't teach confidence. I can't teach personality. I can't teach these other honesty, and those kind of things. So to me, that's the most important.
Yeah. Integrity is huge, especially in this industry. If you do something wrong, it behooves you to fall on the sword. And especially when it comes to safety, the just culture thing is really important to facilitate. But for those that are, again, early in their career and they're looking at a career path, I should work here and then work on these different types of systems and these different types of airframes. Do you recommend any particular career path in terms of exposure to certain things, or what's your advice there?
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
An MRO, I think, is a good start for sure. Because you can get in and you can experience, depending on what type of MRO, like an OEM, you're only going to experience their products. So if you come to work in my hangar, you're only going to experience our products. But, we have, our partner MROs and service centers, across the U.S. You go into an MRO and you're going to get exposure not only to Leonardo products, but you'll get exposure to Airbus products, Bell products, Robinson, Instrom, especially if you want to be in helicopter world. You'll get a little bit of exposure to everything, and that allows you to build that skill set. So that's for sure a good entry point, I think. Another one is an OEM, even if it's working on the production line for 6 months to a year, to build that knowledge of how these machines are put together. Because that is, I still to this day walk over there sometimes, just peek my head in when they come in just as an airframe and nothing's in them, just to see how different things are. It's very interesting. And the only places you can do it is where they're, produced. To see them completely nothing in them, all the way through the process. So I think that's a good point, just to build that, even if you have your A&P, to build that knowledge base on how they're put together, where the wires go, where the lines go, how it all comes together. Another one, truthfully, little FBOs. If you're fresh out of A&P school, there's all these little FBOs all over. There's a wealth of knowledge there because there's usually some senior mechanics that are living out their retirement years just working part-time that you can just pull a vast amount of knowledge. I had a good year early on in my career to do that. And it was truly a wealth of knowledge pulling from those guys that are probably long gone now.
Yeah. It's interesting how these positions that you hold over the course of your life and career kind of build into the next thing, and I think in the moment you don't always realize how it's going to set you up for success in a different phase of life. But you take these new challenges like you talk about and, wholeheartedly jump into it. And then that builds the next thing and the next thing. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking for. So thank you for your insight there. I think that is great advice for anybody who's new to the industry or maybe they're mid-career and be like, hey, how do I get to the next level?
I think the biggest is go into no matter what role you end up, be the best at that role. Give it, don't be the guy or gal that's not my job. There's 3 words that will put me over the edge. It's someone that tells me that's not my job. I guess it's 4 words. Be the one that will take on because the next step will come. It may not come today and it may not come tomorrow. 6 months, a year, that next promotion or that next opportunity will come along. Because again, people are always watching. Joe, he just gets it done right every time. It's not even really his job technically, but that kind of thing. Or Joe's always wanted to learn more and asking me, why do I do it this way? Or how are you planning manpower? What goes into a quote? How do you come up with a proposal? Always try and learn. Always somewhat do a role higher than you're in.
Yeah. Again, your reputation precedes you, especially in a small community like the rotorcraft community.
Mm-hmm.
So as we kind of start wrapping up here, one of the last things I want to touch on is from your perspective, and we'll go from a broad rotorcraft community perspective and then maybe narrow it down to a Leonardo perspective. What do you think some of the biggest challenges are, some of the headwinds that we're facing as a community, and how do we kind of overcome that?
For sure, materials, which we talked about. I know what we're doing with the investments we're making and the partnerships we're making with our suppliers to overcome them. I think manpower is another one. And I know the industry is trying to do more in like with what you guys are doing with the conference, what we've done with recruitment and retainment, with building the helicopter school that we do next door with our training academy and partnering with the schools and reaching out into the military. For sure, as an industry, we need to do more to make people aware of the helicopter industry, because most people are not. The days of Vietnam era guys and gals, they're gone. So the output of the military, the helicopter mechanics, isn't what it used to be, because even our military has downsized. So the helicopter world always relied kind of on the military. Everywhere I worked has always been very heavy veteran. And there'll always be veterans doing this because of our helicopter inventory in the U.S. military. But it's not going to be the 70-30 that it always kind of has been in the past. It's probably going to get more to 50-50. So we need to do more about getting that information out there. And then lastly, I think in the next 3 to 5 years, I think is how do we integrate AI? I know we touched on it a little bit, and I don't know the answer to it, but I think it's something as a community we have to understand. How are we going to use it? Where are we going to limit it, right? Where are we going to let it enter? Where are we going to say, no, that's not applicable? So it'll be interesting to see where we go with that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's one of the most exciting aspects of what we're doing. I really appreciate your time.
No, thank you.
Your career is really impressive. It's inspiring to hear you talk about it as though it's no big deal, and you're the director of maintenance at Leonardo. Like that's a big deal, But thank you for imparting your knowledge and inspiration on the folks that listen to the Vertical MRO podcast. It's not every day that you get to talk to James Helkey and gather some inspiration. So again, just really appreciate your time. Before we close out, any parting thoughts or last things you'd like to touch on?
No, not really. First, just thanks for the time. Thanks for the opportunity to be on. Those that could be listening that are getting into aviation, greener grasses ahead. I can say this industry's done me and my family very well. I can't say every day is sunshine and rainbows, but I will say 95% of them are.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed every minute of it. I got to travel the world, met more friends than I can count. So, stay true to yourself. Really, that's all it takes. Stay true to yourself and just be the best version.
Absolutely. Well, James, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing you hopefully at the Vertical MRO conference.
I'll be at both.
All right. Well, we'll see you there. Hopefully we can have a frosty cold beverage there
For sure.
of sort. But until then, we'll catch you later. Cheers.
All right, John. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Robinson Helicopter Company, the choice for unrivaled safety and reliability so you can accomplish any mission with confidence. For more than half a century, Robinson has been at the forefront of the helicopter industry. From the R-22 to the R-66 turbine, Robinson makes helicopters accessible so more people can accomplish more missions. Climb higher. For additional information, visit www.robinsonheli.com.
Thank you to our sponsor, Rotorcraft Repair and Manufacturing, manufacturer of DSX, Dragon Skin Extreme, an FFA-approved rotor blade leading-edge erosion corrosion protective coating with a proven record of durability in harsh environments like sand and rain. Contact Seth at rotorcraft.biz and stop wasting money on other so-called erosion coatings.
Thank you to our sponsor, Precision Aviation Group. Mission-critical operators and fleet managers rely on Precision Aviation Group as a worldwide leading rotor and fixed-wing MRO provider. PAG provides tip-to-tail solutions in 4 MRO segments: avionics, components, engines, and manufacturing DER services. A single point of contact gives you access to over 150 million in inventory globally, 24/7. Just call 800-537-2778. Precision Aviation Group. Others sell parts. We sell support.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS in a partnership with Vertical Magazine. We've had the privilege of sitting down with James Helkey, a true leader in the aviation industry, whose extensive experience in aircraft maintenance, team leadership, and organizational development offers invaluable insights into the world of helicopter operations and maintenance. From managing large teams at Leonardo Helicopters to supporting complex internal audits and aircraft programs, James exemplifies excellence in aviation. We hope you found this discussion as inspiring and informative as we did. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more conversations with industry leaders shaping the future of rotorcraft maintenance and operations. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to catching you in the next episode of the Vertical MRO Podcast. Cheers.